What's going on, and welcome to another episode of Seeing Live. I'm Colion Noir, and there's a lot of news about guns and suppressors in the mainstream media, unfortunately. Thanks to President Trump's pro-gun agenda, but sadly, the media gets a lot of information wrong when it comes to guns and suppressors, which I'm honestly not surprised about as well. Our first guest is calling out the Washington Post for its story on silencers. It's Mike Morrison of Rare and American Majority. What's going on, man?
Hey, Colion, thanks for having me on. Glad to be here, man.
Hey, I'm glad to have you on. So, all right, let's jump right into it, man, because suppressors are a big thing right now. A lot of people are talking. Well, we've been talking about it for years as far as the pro-gun side of things, and now the media and other anti-gunners are starting to kind of pick it up some, and they're starting to realize what's taking place, and they're not too happy with it, so they're going on their whole misinformation agenda, so to speak. So but before we get into that, actually, let's talk about Rare, just to give some people some perspective on what it is you do and the type of writing that you do.
Sure. So I'm just a contributor for Rare. I mostly cover firearms-related news. So anything related mostly to politics. I'm based here out of Alexandria, which is just a hop, skip, and jump from Washington, D.C. I'm on the free side of the river where I can actually own firearms and have a right to self-defense.
Yep.
So I've been contributing to Rare here for more than a year, writing primarily on firearms.
Awesome. Yeah, whenever I go to D.C., which is essentially me saying when I go to Alexandria, because I don't spend very much time in D.C. for obvious reasons, I absolutely love it there, especially I love Old Town. On top of that, what is American Majority?
So American Majority is a nonprofit. We focus on teaching people how to be activists and how to be engaged in their communities. We think that most change in our world is really going to happen at that state and local level. So we help teach people how to run for office, how to be a better person in your community and be more involved. Really focusing down on like the school board and the county commissioner and the city councilor level. Those the people that are filling in potholes and helping out with the things that really do make a bigger impact on your life every single day.
Awesome. I was on a website and I was reading. You kind of mentioned, I don't know if you wrote it or not, but you mentioned it's very important to kind of be always kind of campaigning in a sense, because the far left does that. That's essentially what they do. Is they're continuously campaigning. There's never any pauses, any breaks. They do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether it's overt, covert, however you want to call it. So I thought that was an interesting take on it, because I never really looked at it from that perspective.
And, it's been going on for longer than that. Alexis de Tocqueville, when he came to America, really pointed out just how the organizations in America did a lot to spur on community and civic activism. And we think it's the best way to get involved. Like it's what better way to improve the world around you than to really start locally and to start with the things that are going to make the biggest impact for you and your family and the neighborhood that you live in.
Yeah, I think people undervalue how important just getting involved in local elections and campaigns and things of that nature, and how much of a direct effect it actually has on your life. I think a lot of people, I don't want to say place too much importance, but on a federal level, it's going to take a second for a lot of stuff that you see happening there to really kind of come all the way down and take effect in your life.
Sure.
For more immediate gratification aspects of things.
It's easy to send out angry tweets. It's easy to make a Facebook status, but that's really ultimately slacktivism. Like to really get involved and to really do things to make your community better, you might actually have to, God forbid, show up to an actual meeting and be in the room with other people having conversations. So that's the kind of politicking and political activism that we think is going to make the country better.
But actually show up at the meetings, Mike, is not sexy. That's not sexy.
No, then I can't, I got to put pants on and stuff. It's just the whole
But I like making cute little hashtags. That's what I like to do.
It's way easier.
Yeah, right? But no, it's incredibly important, and you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head with that one. I'm all for social media activism. It's when it's done only exclusively through those means is when we start running into some issues. So I absolutely agree with you.
What we like to say is we want to organize online for offline action.
That's awesome.
That everything that you do online is directed towards actually doing something in real life. So.
Yep, absolutely. I'm all for that. All right, so let's get into some of the juicier components of why we're here today. This article. So, kind of give us a brief recap about your piece regarding the Washington Post coverage of suppressors.
Sure. So it started. This was a fact check that they did, because they do have all the facts and they want to make sure that we know all the facts from their perspective at least. So
When I read that and when I read you say that in your piece, it kind of threw me off for a second. I was like, "What?" And then it took a second for the facetiousness to kind of set in. So that was funny.
they did, to their credit, they got some things right. They
Yeah.
gave Senator Gillibrand and Americans for Responsible Solutions (ARS). They gave them 3 Pinocchios for their misleading statements on suppressors. They both were suggesting and claiming that that earplugs are as good a solution as suppressors, and this so-called Hearing Protection Act is just is nowhere near. It's a misleading thing by gun activists, is what they were saying. So of course this is nonsense. Of course suppressors protect your hearing. They wouldn't compare them to hearing protection if they didn't also protect their hearing. Like, it doesn't make sense. But beyond that, the Washington Post pointed out that the gun advocates have the facts on their sides, and guess what? We've got the science on our sides too. They showed the decibel readings from the amount of reduction that you get from suppressors do make things hearing safe. They do bring them into those levels that aren't going to make your eardrums bleed after you shoot inside. So the big thing that they missed, though, and that what I really wanted to point it out, is that suppressors are a tool for self-defense.
Yeah.
They really were talking mostly about situations, controlled environments at the range where you've got time to put on your eye and ear protection and to walk into a controlled environment and shoot paper. And that's ultimately what we know. That's not really what guns are ultimately for. They're for self-defense as well. So in a self-defense situation, you don't get to say, hold on, home invader, give me just a minute. I want to put my eyes and ears on. Just like we oppose situations where they force us to have unloaded firearms and locked away in safes. It's the same kind of concept. That's just not a tool. That's taking a tool out of our tool shed to protect ourselves.
So quick question. So why do you think the media gets so much wrong about guns and suppressors now?
It's a problem that they just don't have familiarity with them. A lot of them grew up in environments where they just didn't have a culture of gun ownership. They didn't have a culture of responsible firearms use. They grew up in situations where it just wasn't something that was a part of their life and wasn't a part of what they grew up in and around. So that's a huge aspect of it. It's something where connecting people more to just physically being around firearms. Most of their education, and I would bet Senator Gillibrand is getting most of her facts from Hollywood and getting most of what she sees from the television. They don't call them silencers anywhere but out there. So
it's interesting because it's like that same misinformation, well, in terms of the same lack of knowledge, because like you said, they're probably getting their information from Hollywood, is where a lot of people get the perception about silencers, suppressors. I use the word interchangeably. And I like to wonder sometimes whether or not, we put too much in the way of the boogeyman is out there to misinform about firearms, and if it's more so truly about sheer ignorance and thus them creating their own false narrative and running with it, because there is a certain sense of elitism in their minds from the standpoint that, oh, I know this and I got this information, so I know more than you do in terms of anything having to do with firearms or suppressors. How much? Where do you think that percentage may lie? Do you think it's 50-50? Do you think it's 100? No, they're just out there to just mislead, misinform as best as they can, and there's just like complete conglomerate of people who sit there and systematically think of ways to put out misinformation about firearms so that they can scare people off who are kind of in the middle or undecided. What do you think? Where do you think those percentages lie?
I know that there's definitely a group out of there that are advocates masquerading as reporters. They're people that have an agenda, they've got an outcome that they're interested in, and they're going to push for it. So we know that those people are out there. I think they're a little more unique than we give them credit for. I'm not sure that there's a huge a cabal of these guys out here doing this kind of thing. I'm not going to assign malice to where ignorance makes just as much sense. So what I would bet is they just don't have a culture of it. So, which is a great thing, because what that means is if these people are honest, if they're people that are going to look at the facts and draw conclusions based off of the evidence, it means that we can convince them.
Absolutely.
It means that we can go and that we can evangelize to reporters and that we can bring them into gun clubs, that we can take them to ranges, that we can show them how they work. And from that, they'll do some better reporting, hopefully. So looking at yourself not as like a piece of opposition, as somebody to shut down the media and destroy the media at every chance that we can, but to be somebody that can really inform and help out and teach people new things is a better way to look at yourself.
No, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I was thinking the same thing. The hard part is that you're right. There are these kind of smaller conglomerates, so to speak, where their intentions are very deliberate. And unfortunately, it's hard to kind of decipher between, are you just ignorant or are you purposely doing this? And,
Sure.
and especially when we start factoring in the media component of things. So it's definitely something that we kind of have to understand when we go into either conversations, when we're reading certain articles, watching certain videos, and in a way we kind of respond to them, because it's not necessarily the case I need to go in there with my Negan bat every time I see an anti-gun post. But, theoretical Negan bat. That was figurative.
No, I mean,
that was not literal.
I definitely don't have one on the wall. No, there's definitely not. But
we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation and kind of get into the nitty gritty about suppressors and silencers from that standpoint, just so that people understand the political climate that we're in right now.